go C7 down to D7, you go to B... What am I saying? Hi. It was requested that I do another tutorial today, this time for Trying Not to Cry by Cavetown, and that's what this is. For Trying Not to Cry, your guitar is going to be in standard tuning with a capo on the first fret, so that's E, A, D, G, B, E. And you just have a capo on the first fret so that they all go a half step up. The structure for Trying Not to Cry goes intro, verse 1, chorus, verse 2, chorus. So it's very simple, a lot of stuff repeats. There are minimal changes between the verses, and I don't think it's that hard of a song to play. I taught it to myself pretty quickly just by watching Cavetown's video that he posted of himself playing it. So all of the information here is going to be based on that. The chords for Trying Not to Cry are pretty simple. There are a fair amount of them, but none of them are super hard to play. Most of them actually are open. I believe there's only 2 bar chords. So the first one you need to know how to play is a regular C. You have a finger on the first fret of the B string, a finger on the second fret of the D string, and a finger on the third fret of the A string, and you're muting the low E on top. So that sounds like this. The second chord you need to know is an open G, in which you have a finger on the second fret of the A string, a finger on the third fret of the low E, and a finger on the third fret of the high E as well, and that sounds like this. The third chord you need to know, which is also the last chord for verse 1, is an E minor. So you have fingers on the second fret of the A and the D strings, and that sounds like this. The next chord you need to know is a C major 7, where you're going to have a finger on the second fret of the D string and a finger on the third fret of the A string. You're also muting the low E, and that sounds like this. Next, we're doing a B string where you're barring the second fret, and you're using your next 3 fingers to put you in an A chord position on the 4th fret. So you're barring the entire second fret, you're muting the low E at the top, and then you have fingers on the 4th fret of D, G, and B strings. So that sounds like this. Next is a G bar chord, in which you're barring the 3rd fret and putting your fingers into an E chord position. You have a finger on the 4th fret of the G string, and then fingers on the 5th fret of the A and D strings. So that sounds like this. Next, you move this up 5 frets, so this goes to the 8th. All of this is relative to the capo. So you just move up here, exact same finger. Next, you need to know a D7 chord, which is a D but inverted essentially. So you're muting the top 2 strings, so you're muting the E and the A, and you have a finger on the 1st fret of the B string and fingers on the 2nd fret of the high E and the G strings. So that sounds like this. And then the second to last one you need to know is a B minor 7, which looks like this. What you're doing is you have fingers on the 2nd fret of the A string, the G string, and the high E. You're also muting the low E. And lastly, you need to know a normal D chord as well, in which you're muting the E and the A string. You have fingers on the 2nd fret of the G and the E string, and a finger on the 3rd fret of the B. Next is the general strumming pattern from the song, which varies from verse to verse and into the chorus, but for the chorus you can generally just use down, down, up, up, down, up. So relative to the capo, you're going to put your fingers on the 8th fret of the E and B, and then you're also going to put them on the 7th fret of the E and B. This essentially allows you to be completely set up for the intro. I'm just going to be referring to the strings with their letter and then the number fret because it's a lot easier for me to say. So you go E8, B8, E7, B8, E7, B8, and then B7, B8. So that sounds like this. And so you play through that twice for the intro. The way that I do it also is I had it in the background of my cover while I was playing the verses. But just to go over it again really quickly, it's E8, B8, E7, B8, E7, B8, B7, B8. I don't think it's very complicated. It's pretty easy to pick up on. And so I'm going to move into verse 1. For verse 1, what I do is I keep all of the chords as a single strum with a little bit of down, down, up for the transition at the last chord. The chord progression for the first verse is C to G to E minor, and it's moving pretty quickly, so I typically just do a single strum and then move right into the next chord. For the E minor, you're hanging out there for a little bit longer, so I like to do a down, down, up before I transition back into the C. But it's pretty simple. It sounds like this. Obviously, the strum pattern varies a little bit. I've said it before, I don't typically write out my strum patterns. I typically do them by ear and by feel. So take that ending however you want. You can do the down, down, up. You can do whatever I was doing that was definitely not down, down, up, or you can just omit it altogether, whatever floats your boat. But that pattern continues throughout the entire verse until you get into the chorus, in which I typically just do a down strum on the E minor and let it ring out. I don't do any other embellishments. And then for the chorus, the strumming pattern is definitely down, down, up, down, up. It sounds a little bit funky because of the way that you have to switch through the chords, but that is the strum pattern I use throughout the entirety of the chorus. Besides the end, where we're at that barred C chord, but even then, you just kind of like go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. The chord progression for the chorus is a little bit funky. You're going from C7 to B, back to C7 to bar G to bar C, and you do that twice. And then you play through and you go from C7 to D7 to B minor 7, and then you go back to the one that we established before, where it's C7, B, C7, G bar, C bar. So I'm going to play through that really quickly just to show you, because it works a lot better than saying it out. And I hope that this is helpful. I don't really know a better way to phrase this. So as you can see, it is definitely a little bit funky. The way that I think about it is when you're going from the C7 to the B back to C7, you're going down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up. And then you just go into the bar chords as you normally would. And then so for the middle part where it's C7 to D7 to B minor 7, that's all just up, down, up, and you switch to the next chord. So next we're gonna go into verse 2, which is pretty much the same as verse 1 in terms of the chords. And the way that I do the second verse is a continuous down strum throughout the entire thing. And so the way that that sounds is kind of like this. So it's pretty simple. And then so for It's Quiet as Hell is My Room, and then so for It's Quiet as Hell in My Room, you're doing the same thing, but instead of having the E minor go on for as long as it normally does, you're gonna cut it in half and do the D instead. And that sounds like this. It's a little bit easier for me to play with the lyrics. I can't really do the timing while just strumming, but if you listen to the song and you kind of play through it by yourself, you'll figure it out. And then so for at the end, where it's How Do I Stay Alive When I Don't Wanna Be, basically when you get to the wanna, you're just gonna play a single strum G chord. So that sounds like this. How do I stay alive when I don't wanna be? So it's pretty simple, and then you just move back into the chorus and you play it over again. Yeah. So that's how you play Trying Not to Cry. I don't know if this tutorial was helpful. It feels significantly worse than the last one, so I hope it doesn't suck. But that's how I play Trying Not to Cry. If my tutorial makes no sense, my recommendation is to go and just stare at the video and stare at his hands, and that's how I learned it, so hopefully you'll be able to pick it up that way as well. If needed, you can also stare at his video, watch him play, and use this side by side and try to figure it out, or you can just stare at my cover, whatever. I don't really know. I don't make much of an effort to hide my hands. I make it fairly obvious what I'm playing. So if this isn't helpful, feel free to stare at my cover. There's also a comment in the cover where I explain the chords and what they are. If reading is better for you, you can go and look at that, and that should be helpful. There's also a link to the intro tab on Ultimate Guitar. Thank you to the person who asked for a tutorial. I'm so sorry if this sucks and you learned nothing. Thank you for sticking with me through whatever this was. Bye.